Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Sruzabasti with the Find Your Film podcast. For this installment, I have Dominique. Have you not heard of Dominique? Just came out October 11th in theaters, digital and on demand. If you have not heard about it, it's understandable. It was not released to Netflix or Paramount Plus or any of the big streamers, not even Stars or whatnot. It wasn't released in a big theater. It was released in select theaters on October 11th, as well as digital and on demand. You can get it right now, rent, purchase it on via digital and on demand. I think it's worth it. If you like action thrillers, this is a movie to rent, possibly even purchase. And I'll tell you why. Both in a second. I'm trying to get my mind together. Well, Eric and I, we both really love this movie. On Cinematics, he and I gave it really high. I gave it 5 stars. He gave it 4.5 stars, which is a weird thing because his logic was he gave it 4.5 stars because he's saving 5 stars for Dominique Part 2 if there is a sequel to Dominique, which doesn't make sense because he said during his review that deep down inside it's a 6.9 star banger. 6.9 stars is for his version of 5 stars, higher than like pretty much an A+++. But I don't know. He gave it officially 4.5 stars. Bottom line is we all love this movie. It centers on the titular character played by Oksana Orlan. And we're introduced to her because her plane is shot down over some small South American town. Okay, the movie is shot in Colombia, and there's a bunch of just robbers ready to plunder that plane. Ultimately, she's the driver of that plane. Tables are turned. All 3 of these men are killed. And then she goes out into the town, maybe seeking refuge, hiding. Her plane's down. She needs to find a way to get out of this country, whatever this country may be. So she initially seeks shelter with this. Unwittingly, she has a one-night stand with a guy who turns out to be one of the local police officers. He introduces her to his family. He lives with his sister and I believe, if I recall, his niece and nephew and his father? No, his grandfather. He lives with his family, this police officer, and ultimately Dominique. She's a person of a few words, and she just wants to get out of here, get out of there. And she had a fun time with that guy, and she's ready to move on. The catch is the town is filled with corrupt lawmen, corrupt drug cartel. Well, of course, what drug cartel isn't corrupt? There's a lot of bad people in that whole surrounding area. And for Dominique to actually survive, she has to first get out of that area, but she has a change of heart when she realizes that she might actually care about this family. So even though these extra people are excess baggage for her and may actually slow her down, the rest of the movie, she decides to do whatever it takes to keep her alive and the family alive. And so that is the premise of Dominique. Only barrier to entry is it's pretty violent. There is bloodletting and torture in the movie. My mom wanted to see it, and I said, it's just too bloody for you. Even though I gave it 5 stars, I don't know, maybe I'll let her see it, but it's not one of those clean action movies where there's if you want just sort of a slick action movie with not too much gore. I mean, this is not like a big horror movie where limbs are cut off and whatnot, but there is enough violence to make you want to close your eyes. So if you're okay with closing your eyes, and I didn't close my eyes because I'm just a normal weird sick puppy, but if there might be chances for you to close your eyes, and hopefully that does not detract from your overall enjoyment of Dominique. Why did I give this movie such a high rating? Why did Eric give it a high rating as well? Well, really good performances by everyone, including especially Oksana Orlan as the lead. Maurice Compte as the main antagonist is very good. He's a very layered character. He's the head of the police operation. He has an interest on why he wants to eliminate Dominique and the family. Really loved his character. There's Jose Conejo Martin, who plays the right-hand man of Maurice Comte's character. And he has a really great fight sequence with Dominique as well. And then finally, the movie's directed and co-written by Michael S. Ojeda. And Ojeda co-wrote the script with Oksana Orlan, and they've been working on this for the last 6 or 7 years. Dominique actually started as a short called, I think, Rise of the Phoenix, and that short had nothing to do with. It was not actually the story behind this installment. The actual short the events of that takes place after the events of this movie, Dominique. So what happens is Dominique is actually a prequel to the movie they wanted to make, which is interesting because that's how it worked. They couldn't find the funds for Rise of the Phoenix, so they decided to make a prequel, which is Dominique, and not I don't know where the Rise of the Phoenix was supposed to be set, but just simple twist of fate. And finally, their dream came true with the making of Dominique. And hopefully, if this movie does well, they're going to have a sequel, which is eventually that Rise of the Phoenix sequel. I don't know if it's going to be called Dominique Rise of the Phoenix or Dominique 2. I just hope there's a sequel. Now, what makes this movie special? Because there's so many action thrillers that you can just enjoy with tons of action and great choreography, great locales, good acting. And but why did I give it 5 stars? Well, the knockout punch for me was the events that transpire in the third act, which I'm not going to get to on this Find Your Film podcast. It was just so amazing to watch. I was absolutely shocked. I've seen my share of movies in my life, and I'm trying to think of moments where I've been shocked regarding endings or just throughout the movie. And there's a couple of movies that have shocked me as much as Dominique. There is a movie called The Great Silence, directed by Sergio Corbucci. It's a spaghetti western, but it's set in the snow. The Great Silence, that snowy western, actually was a direct inspiration for Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. So if you haven't seen The Great Silence, it's a great movie, and it's from Sergio Corbucci. It stars Klaus Kinski, and I forget who was the main lead. Jean-Louis, I don't possibly, but I know Klaus Kinski. He plays the antagonist in The Great Silence. The ending that surprised me. Also, the final moments of The Wild Bunch. Okay, surprised me as well. The Wild Bunch was directed by Sam Peckinpah. Peckinpah also directed this movie called Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. There's something that happens towards the middle of the movie, or maybe towards the end of the movie, that shocked me as well. That's another movie that I need to rewatch. Bottom line is, there's Dominique surprised me with how the events transpired towards the third act. It's just, in my opinion, worth watching for that. That it was like a what the F happened moment with Dominique. Actually, that the what the F happened moments, there are moments in the third act which surprised me. So I don't know, maybe I'm too high on this movie. I confidently love Dominique. Hopefully there's some people out there, listeners, hopefully you'll enjoy Dominique or appreciate it as well. Tell us what you think of Dominique. Now, for this Find Your Film installment, I have interviews with, number one is Oksana Orlan. Second is Maurice Compte. Third is Jose Conejo Martin. And then fourth is the director and co-writer Michael S. Ojeda. Couple things. Maurice Compte, he actually is an executive producer of Dominique. And he is also an executive producer of this, I think, is it a mini series or limited series that came out this year called Hotel Cocaine? So he talks a little bit about that in his interview. Jose Conejo Martin is a popular rapper known as Conejo, and he talks about his podcast, I believe, Inside a Sinister Mind. He talks about creating that podcast, which is currently in its 5th season. And yeah, that's some really interesting stuff. Hopefully you don't mind. These interviews are back to back to back to back. 4 interviews, all straight. Okay, so no intros behind them. I'm just dumping the intros right now. Finally, I did ask Oksana and Michael about the ending of Dominique, and I cut that out from the main interviews that you could listen to here on Find Your Film, but I'm actually saving that for our Cinematics Patreon members, and I just haven't gotten to talking about the spoilers yet, doing a spoiler segment for Dominique. Eric and I recorded one a week ago. So Eric and I talked about Dominique's ending. So we have that audio, and then we also have audio of Oksana Orlan and Michael S. Ojeda talking about the ending of Dominique. Those spoilers will be available for our Patreon members early access, and then a week later, it'll be available on our Cinematics YouTube channel. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully you'll enjoy Dominique and these interviews, and thank you so much for listening to me here, and most importantly, listening to the talent I get to interview on Find Your Film. Wanted to also mention about another podcast that will be baked in to the Patreon that I will mention towards the end of this Find Your Film podcast. Okay, so I'm just going to let these interviews run through. That's the meat of the program. But then at the end, stay tuned if you want to hear my thoughts and ideas for a new podcast that I have. It's called The Junketeer. Anyways, thanks again, and have a listen to some of these Dominique interviews. So I'm here with Oksana Orlan, star and producer of Dominique. First off, I love this movie. I'm thinking shooting in Colombia, it seems so hot out there in the elements. You're doing so much action, maybe martial arts, a lot of fighting. Whether it's night or day, was it always hot there, or am I just imagining things? Was it not as bad as I'm thinking?
Actually, Colombia is at the time over a year when we went, it was winter. It was quite chilly, probably 40s, 50s. And if you look right now in the weather report, you will see rain every day. I did not know that too. It's basically rains every 2 hours. It's nonstop, nonstop, and I feel like mermaid, after leaving the boat. So my tail started growing. But it's a great country. So it's the best country to shoot. The landscape, the lush, greenery, and just visually stunning. But it's on high altitude, so it's hard to breathe.
Yeah. So I was looking at your filmography, and it says in 2015 there was a 12-minute short called The Rise of the Phoenix. Now, basically, the whole world of Dominique, has it been shaping for you for about at least 10 years? What has that been like, just building that world for you and your director?
Yeah, is it that long? It seems like, not longer, but probably 7 years for sure. And that was the proof of a concept. So the Dominique heroine was born long time ago and went straight to the big budget film in our heads, big explosion, big locations, and bigger concepts. And that was designed to raise money. And it's a great short. We couldn't at that time. So we decided to create a smaller script that just take place in one location, one house. And what about to do a prequel for Dominique? And it seems like a good idea. Just still do it, just don't take no for an answer. And keep pushing it. And that sequel helped us actually with the prequel because we showed that short to our partner producer in Colombia, and that what sealed the deal.
For fans, for fans of Dominique, once they see this, they're going to want to see the short film. Will that short film ever be available? Maybe on digital? Can people track it down? Will you release it as a producer on Blu-ray when it comes out? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who want to see it after this movie.
I like that idea. We should take your idea. I'll take Greg's also to put in Blu-ray. Oh, yeah, right. Probably it's something if we have fans and they are following this film. What a great idea. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of great ideas, I'm sure you, Michael, how far do you see this character going? Because after my only complaint with this movie is as much as I loved it, I wanted to see the sequel immediately because I'm impatient. So how far do you see this story going? And must be a great thing to even think about.
You left emotionally unsatisfied after watching, like, what's going on? I gotta be a sequel, right? That's how it's designed, actually.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we saw that the story I told you about in the beginning that already written, it's waiting, and we just have a good feeling. It may be a go very soon, few months, not close few months, but maybe 4 months or something, because we have a very good feedback so far. Be very excited for this film. It's just like hopefully it's an interesting, different story. But of course, Dominique is now working in a church. That's how it starts.
Look, I'm just wondering about you and your just working relationship with Michael. What is it that this partnership that really works between you two? Because I'm looking at your IMDb and you guys go back to a movie that you guys did back in 2002, I think. So what is it? What is special about your working relationship as fellow artists?
Oh, this is like collaboration is so powerful. It's just we have the same view in what we want to create. It's just bouncing ideas. It helps us to develop the script even better and go further. I'm a big supporter of Michael. I think he's an incredible director. He's a risk taker and he's very bold. I would also say if he would be a painter, he probably would paint not with watercolors but with oil, because he likes these bold colors and strong characters and those twists in the plots. And he likes to create something that somebody never seen before or have seen it long time before, but he wants to bring back. And that's the collaboration. And also I try on a bigger production like Dominique. I know exactly what he wants, and in certain circumstances maybe he will not get certain things he wants. He will start doubt if he should get that, and or something in the script that he, especially with the ending, he would come back and we would think, and I would sort of help him to that he's in the right direction. That telling him that you're doing because that's your original instinct. You should stick to that because his original instinct is always right. He shouldn't be going the other way because maybe because of people opinion, or maybe because he doesn't have money for that, or maybe because so that's sort of also a great aspect of our we're not just writing but also on the set, and also we like the same kind of actors. So interesting because in the casting process we keep choosing the same actors. So he would say this, I'm like definitely this. He said I thought so. So again, the same mind. Yeah.
Final couple of questions. Have you always wanted to be an actor and a producer, a filmmaker? Was that always in your dream as a young child, or yeah?
I love acting the most. As far as the producing, I like just to see the process of the film being born and then go through all the stages of development and at the very end and what's happening with the documents later and contracts. It's also very interesting because it's like your baby. You want to make sure it's taken care of. But please don't take me wrong. I'm not the lead producer. We have a great team of lead producers who are amazing. I just sort of here to learn and just enjoy the process of a film world.
How pleased were you with the final cut of Dominique? Because it's such a great film. Or is it really hard for you to enjoy? Because I'm sure you've seen it in the edit room just so many times, right? Are you able to just fully just watch the movie as a fan and really enjoy the experience?
I saw it in a big screen during this sound design. And I'm so thankful, Lionsgate, Grindstone, that they are our distributors. They are really behind this film. And the film got a limited theatrical release, which is incredible to have these days. And this film needs to be on a widescreen because you can definitely go even deeper into the world of Dominique. And it just was an incredible experience. I'm very happy with the final cut. I'm very happy with the music. We found an incredible composer, Narek. He's from Armenia, actually. He just created these impeccable scores. And it's interesting enough, Michael doesn't talk about it, but he also created a few scores in the film.
Even all of your actors are fantastic in this movie. How proud are you of just even some of the smaller soldiers or the smaller roles are excellent. Was it hard to just cast just so much really good detail in your film?
Again, finding the raw talent is incredible joy. That's the kind of other side of filmmaking, not as an actress, but more like a producer. It's just incredible to find these gems. Those all actors are godsend. Some of them are very famous in Colombia, like the grandfather. He's like a Robert De Niro here in the United States. He's mega star.
He's so good.
And actually talking about him, I kind of envision exactly him in the wheelchair, but it was a smaller part, more like a dirty mouse talk, like the grandpa that they just just have a sort of humor almost element. But when we saw an actor, Michael wrote just a few scenes just for him because we were so fascinated by him, like how captivating he is. And then of course kids, Lucy, and then little boy and Maria. Maria Mother did a great job as well. Alana, sorry for getting her. Alana, oh, that girl talent. Oh my God, she's incredible talent. Sebastian, he is incredible. What a natural actor Sebastian is.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I noticed, to tell you the truth, all Colombian actors are very, very natural act. Like their lines comes from their heart, like all of them. So it's interesting and easy to work that way. And maybe that's why it's a great bonding. Even you can see chemistry, also good chemistry happening.
Yeah, very quickly, last question. Oksana, right off the top of your head, can you name one of your all-time favorite films? And what is it about this movie that is very special to you? And thank you for your time.
I like different kind of films. I like The Seven, for instance. So my range will be really wide. I like the Steven Spielberg film Empire of the Sun.
Oh, I love that. What makes Empire of the Sun such a special film for you? I really love that movie too.
Journey of that boy, was the just that performance was so incredible, and it's different kind of films. It's I don't like just one genre or another. I like different kind of films.
Dominique hits theaters, digital and on demand, October 11th. San Orlan, thank you so much for your time. I really love your film.
Thank you.
Maurice, how are you?
Yo, what's up, Greg? How are you, man?
Good, man. Pleasure to meet you. So I'm here with Maurice Compte, star, executive producer of this really awesome film called Dominique. I see so many action thrillers, and it's very hard. I enjoy a lot of them, but it's very hard for me to say something really stands out. And without giving too much away, this movie was a complete standout for me. Was it a standout for you when you read the script, and was that one of the reasons why you were excited to be part of this project?
Yeah, I knew it was a lot to. It was going to be a lot to put together. But Mike definitely showed me at our meeting that he had the capacity to be able to put it together, given the resources that we had. Which is really what makes independent film so magical. Is that you're kind of doing it with one hand tied behind your back. And when things like that come together, there has to be kind of like there's this magical aspect that really makes you feel just really connected in a different way. It's easy to make a film and make it work when you have the resources that you need, but when you have just enough resources and not one iota beyond that, and you really gotta know how you're managing your stuff, and you can do it and make it feel abundant, then you really have something special. And that's how I felt with Mike.
Maurice, you're a successful actor, but what drove you to be also a producer? What drives that lane for you, that passion on that road?
Same thing that drives me with acting, my love of storytelling. I love being able to tell stories, and I love to be able to kind of bring messages to people and kind of reflect to them different aspects of themselves and different aspects of society, and give things people to relate to. As an actor starting off on stage, it was the feeling of wanting to feel connected to people, of having people wanting to feel connected to me, but still kind of be in their own bubble. But not feel alone. I mean, the theater used to be a very communal act. We used to go as a community to theater. We used to go as a community. I think that shifted away, but I think that you can still watch people performing and still feel that something in yourself is being drawn to something. And when it calls you to do something greater than what you are, that's that's a more positive aspect. I know that a lot of the times I play the heavy, and it's difficult to say, but like, I'm not a heavy in a vacuum. I'm normally juxtaposed against somebody that is there to highlight something within themselves that they should be kind of focused in on in their own being and in their own life.
You play the heavy, but in a lot of your roles, but in this role, the heavy is, to me, as a cinephile, I thought it was a very layered character. Can you speak to that? Because I really love the depth of your character. It's not just a straight evil character on a surface level, which you can enjoy as escapist fare, but I think there was more to it with that. Or am I overreading on this?
No, I don't think you are. I think that with some of this stuff, it's like, I think the big lesson for, Chief Santiago was not to overestimate your opponent. I mean, not to underestimate your opponent. I think that's what he did. He should have overestimated his opponent, and he would have been in a better position. But he was very relaxed. He's used to things running a certain way. A person comes in, this kind of stuff happens. It's crazy, but it's not the craziest thing that's ever happened in the beginning. It just continues to devolve for him into something less and less manageable for him, and I think that in the beginning it's just business as usual, and then it becomes less and less of that. I think, again, people tend to normally underestimate women, and if UFC has taught us anything, is that women can kick some serious ass, so.
Speaking of kicking serious ass and being underestimated, in the last several years you've worked with Ojeda, John Swab, Isaac Florentine. You mentioned indie filmmaking. Can you just speak to the fact that these are just top of the line filmmakers who I think are just under the radar because it's an indie film where people will say, oh, it's a B action movie, but there's just so much stuff that each of these filmmakers bring. And I think they're just all qualified artists. You're working with them on a day-to-day basis. What's that like for you?
I think if we look at the state of film today, and television today, they overextended themselves so much. A lot of these studios, and they thought that they could make infinite amount of programs with infinite amount of budgets, and I think the audience started becoming like lackadaisical. It was just, I think, again, what makes theater so amazing is that there's a level of richness, but there's also a level where you have to kind of get involved because it's not all there. It's not like it's a set and it's on stage, but it can't be moved. And so you have to employ a bit of yourself as an audience member, and it helps you to feel immersed. Like, we get into this thing where we're being spoon-fed everything with these giant budgets. And I think that as wonderful as it is for certain things, when that becomes the norm, I think, the natural tendency is for the pendulum to want to swing in the other direction as well.
Yeah, and these filmmakers do it. And after this, I really want to see Hotel Cocaine. What am I going to get from that? And I look at you being a producer on that. That just seems like such a huge task. Was it a huge task, or am I overthinking again? It wasn't as...
Yeah, it's an experience. Like, it was a huge task. It's a story about my dad's life. I wanted to pay homage to my father, but more than telling the story of the actual story of my dad and like Miami, and like there are aspects to it of that for sure. But what I wanted to do is really kind of give people a feeling and take the people that lived through it back to the experience of what it was like to be a Cuban refugee in that time in Miami. The world was at a very specific place. Things were very hot with communism at the time, and being a refugee is very different than being an immigrant. An immigrant comes here for a better life. A refugee cannot go back, or they will be killed. It was Cubans were forced into this scenario. Now, but what we did with it, or what the Cuban community did with it, was what the story is about. Like, that is a story. It's a story about an experience. And I think that ultimately that's all great films are experiences. Even when you're recounting something, where you're only recounting not the reality of what occurred, but whoever it chooses to tell the story. And that is already a skewed view on occurrence. Like, nobody can be 100% factual on anything because everybody has a lean.
Maurice, I have one quick question. Is just from your resume, can you pick one movie or TV project that you feel is underrated or underseen that you would like our listeners to watch, and what makes it unique for you? And thank you for your time.
Yeah, I think an earlier film that I did was called Dreamcatcher. It's a film that I did early on in my career, but I just watched it a few days ago, and it really holds up the test of time. It's done really well. And if you've already seen it, there's two other films that I've done. One was Fidel with David Atwood, which was the story of like Fidel Castro in the beginning, and it's a very interesting historical piece, as being said by an outsider. Again, it's you can't ever, history is always written by a specific faction. But the other film was a film that I did with a filmmaker by the name of Julian Schnabel, and that was called Before Night Falls. And that was Javier Bardem's first Oscar nomination. And I think it's a film that should be seen and gone to see again. And even a film that I haven't done, which I still watch all the time and I love, is the film Basquiat by the same director, Julian Schnabel. A fascinating film. Jeffrey Wright is in it playing Basquiat, and it's just one of the quintessential films that I really feel like captivate an era. Again, feelings are about creating feelings of experience, and that's what all these films do.
Maurice, thank you so much for your time, and I really love Dominique.
All right, thank you so much, brother.
With Jose Conejo Martin, the co-star of Dominique, I love the movie. So I want to know, I'm sure you've seen the final cut, your initial thoughts of what you've seen, and how pleased are you with Dominique, because I really love the film.
Honestly, I haven't seen the final cut, but I seen some parts because I would go to like Michael's house, the director, Michael Ojeda. So I would, obviously I wanted to see my parts, and then, but I like it. I like what I saw.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I talked to Oksana and I said, look, Colombia, it seemed from the movie, it seemed like everything was hot. And she corrected me and she said it was actually pretty cold at times. What was it like for you to shoot there? And did you like, I don't know how long you lived there. What was it like living there for that space? Obviously, you weren't living much, you were working a lot. So, no.
Yeah, well, I went twice. So the first time was like a month and some change. But you know what? It's like how she said, like we had night shoots, right? Where it would be like from like 6 p.m. to like 6 a.m., right? So the hardest thing about that is you got to stay awake. Then it was cold. Then it was drizzling. We were by the side of the mountains. That's probably the roughest part, but you know what? It was well worth it because I think those are some of the coolest scenes, those night scenes.
The choreography, the fight choreography, does that come for you as an actor? Is it natural? Because it just seems so intricate that the normal person would, like me, I'm thinking how complex it is. But for you, maybe a lot easier?
Well, I've been training martial arts probably like 25 years, maybe even more. And before we left to Colombia, we were already with the fight coordinator here in the US. Then when we got there, we heavily got into it over there. We was like doing it a lot. And me and Oksana, we got close. So, there was trust there, not going too far and so that we wouldn't get hurt, because and I did get a couple of nicks and scratches here and there, like the part where she hits me with the clip. I really got hit with the clip. I was really bleeding.
Did you stay in the moment and just keep on shooting that scene? Or?
Yeah. We just kept going. I mean, I'm a trooper. I could say I could take a punch. So we just kept going. We were trying to get because I think that when they're shooting, the biggest thing against is time. So you can't go over time. So you got to get these scenes done in a certain amount of time before you go on to the next one. So it's like, let's go. There's nothing here. I'll wipe it off. Let's keep it going.
On the concept of time, I apologize for this. I've only listened to one episode, season 5, episode 1 of Inside a Sinister Mind. And as a podcaster, I'm amazed at how much work you put in, the narration, the sound design, the different people coming in and out, talking about, reflecting about back in the day in the 90s, what the parties were like. And I'm just so excited I'm going to rewind and start from season 1, episode 1. Can you just talk about how much work you put into it? And it seems like you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for people to really connect with them and for them to get a picture. And I think that's really beautiful about your podcast.
Yeah, well, like I'll tell you, like, Conejo tells the greatest stories. But so I was thinking, like, when I came up with the concept, I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna do a podcast where I'm gonna tell these stories, but I'm gonna sound design it, and I'm gonna just, well, you heard it. That's how I do it, and I hop around. So season 1 starts 24 hours when I was on my journey. For those that know about my journey, I was in Mexico, and it starts 24 hours before that journey brought me back to the U.S. all up into the tax collector. I go from there all the way up to going on another little journey, and then being on the movie. Season 2 goes back to the 90s. Then I go back to Mexico, season 3. And I just jump around, But, and I think people enjoy it. Like they love it. It was for a minute. I remember it was like number 1, like biographical storytelling podcast around.
That's amazing.
Season 1 was.
Was that always your intent? Because it seems you put so much work into what you do. When you started in this as an artist, was it always about contributing to the culture and for representation and other people, or did you mature into that as you became a more veteran artist, like looking outside and doing it because it seems like you really do it for other people more than yourself?
I mean, you know what? Like when you love what you're doing, it doesn't seem, it takes a lot of hours because I'm the one that edits everything. I do all the sound, I do everything, so it's a lot of hours and hours and hours of work, so it does take time. But when you love what you're doing, I get a kick out of it. I'm like, oh, they're going to love this right here. I already know. I'm like, they're going to eat this up right here. It's I could take you on that little roller coaster. It's emotional. You'll hear episode 1, my daughter's in it. You'll I'll get you. I'll hook you in, you know?
Yeah.
And it's for the culture, it's for the art. So
Yeah. What's
hopefully we get that into a series,
Yeah, and I listened to you described it as raw, unfiltered energy. I listened to your latest single, Adrenalina, and it's
Yes.
hip hop, rap, rock, and
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to some of your. I can't wait to listen to the entire like the reset from last year.
Yeah.
So after listening to that, can you tell our listeners what album for people who are not aware of your work, what album should they pop off with, and then
I think
on
they
your that
should
journey?
they should listen to the reset. It talks about like my rebirth and everything, what I've been through. There's a lot of songs under the real personal. Right now, you heard of Adrenalina. I'm working on my new album. It's like you said, new metal rap rock album. It's with a live band. So yeah, I don't know. I just got back from London. I did another movie with David Ayer and Jason Statham, another action movie. So I'm just going from craft to craft, podcasts, music, movies.
Do you have time for yourself because you're just so busy doing so many things, man?
I have to, or I have to, but good thing I live by the beach. I live by the mountains, so I could go for a hike whenever I need it.
Yeah. I was wondering what works with your partnership with David Ayer. You've known him for a while.
Yeah, we're from the same neighborhood. We grew up together. He grew up 2 blocks away from me. I know him since I was a kid. And, we linked up later as I got older. And then he's just like a big brother. He's like a mentor to me. So like when I work with David Ayer, I bring those same things to Michael, that trust. Like I trust Dave. Dave's like my corner guy. When I'm in a boxing match, he's the corner guy. He's telling me, look, it's round 8. You need to step it up. So I trust him, his guidance. And that's the same thing with Michael, with Dominique. I'm like, throw me in there. What do you want me to do, boss? I got it. And and Michael, just like David, they let me make adjustments,
Yeah.
to better suit the movie.
You mentioned Michael and David, but also Conejo is a mentor to so many people. How is it like? What's the key to having that responsibility? Because average people like me thinks that's very overwhelming, although very gratifying and very valued to society. But what's it like for you to have that as a mentor to people?
I mean, I think I think what I do, I just offer them like understanding and comprehension. Just hear them out, and sometimes they tell me things, I laugh. Sometimes I'm like, hey, but don't you think this, but I don't really try to give them advice. I just try to like understand them and just hear them out and take it from there.
She's wrapping me up right now. Thank you so much for your time. Really love Dominique. Really love The Tax Collector. I'm going to go on a deep dive to your podcast and music. Appreciate all your time.
Blessings.
Hey, Greg.
Michael, how are you?
Good, man. Good.
Good. So right off the top, this seems like, well, this is a very ambitious movie. And I can't imagine there wasn't a day on set where you had a million things to do. And it just seems such a difficult film to make from my POV. What was the hardest part of making this movie?
Well, aside from the financing, which is always the most difficult part, it was working in Colombia under the way they do things. In America, in an indie film, I have more control. Crews are willing to work 12, 13 hours to get the job done. And you're able to kind of set your own plan. Where going to Colombia, they work like union studio pictures do, even though you have an indie budget. And so they want to cut the amount of days. They want to cut the amount of, you can only work a certain amount of time during the days. And I constantly kept finding myself running out of time every day. Like, I thought we had 12-hour days there. Yeah, but 1 hour is devoted towards breakfast. 1 hour is devoted towards lunch. And then, and we don't really get started until 2 hours later. And that was very frustrating to me. And now, I mean, we have a sequel planned. And if it happens, at least I'll go into it knowing that. And I'll just plan more days, Yeah. So that was the biggest challenge, I mean, if I had done it here with the crew that I work with normally on different things, probably would have gone a lot smoother. Although the Colombian crew is amazing, they're top-notch pros, but they work like studio film, and they're used to having their perks and their time and doing things, But the problem is you can't do that in an indie film when it's this ambitious, Yeah.
It's also ambitious in the script. Can you just talk about writing the screenplay and making this more than an escapist action film? There's a lot more meat to the bone, I think.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away. And what was your intent? Because I thought this was could have been escapist, which would have been fine, but it's also very gritty. And I really appreciated that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you asked several questions there, I think, but the original script was called Rise of the Phoenix, a totally different movie, and and we tried to get the financing together for that, and it was basically about this assassin working in a church kitchen, and she befriends this little boy whose sister's kidnapped by human traffickers, and she goes to find the sister. And it was just so big, we couldn't raise the financing, so I came up with the idea of a prequel with Oksana. What if we just write how she arrives in America for the first time? I mean, Latin America for the first time, and it all takes place at a house, small film. And so to me, it was a small film compared to the original. To answer your question, right? So it was to me. The scale is not that big. To me, fight scenes, gunplay is cheap. I mean, it's airsoft guns, pop, pop, pop. We didn't use blanks most, so it was all visual effects. And so, it was really about the choreography. And I'm not afraid of action. I think that's because I've done quite a bit of it over the years. And so, I think most independent filmmakers might be interested in doing it, but they're afraid to go there. They feel like things are out of their control. But I do a lot of the choreography myself. And I work with the stunt coordinators and stuff like that to get it where I want it. But so if your question was how the scale, the scale was not that big on this. The biggest thing was choosing to shoot on the top of a mountain, the end sequence. That wasn't in the original plan. But when I saw that the mountain that they could climb and shooting it up there, I'm like, we got to do it. So that was a bit of a pain in the ass bringing all the vehicles up there, but.
Yeah, Michael, final couple of questions. Whenever I ask writer directors about what is the best part of the process, a lot of times they say the screenplay because that's when they can actually write whatever they want to write and everything. Oh, so you disagree. Why do you disagree? What is your favorite part of the process? Yeah.
I hate writing. It's a very solitary thing and you have to escape the world. And I have to kind of isolate myself for like 2-3 days before I can even get into the world I'm writing. And it's a very painful process. I wouldn't say I hate it. It's just a painful process for me, right? But once I'm in the zone, then I write and I don't want anyone to bother me for weeks, right? So I don't really find much joy in that. I mean, I enjoy the process of, also another thing is in my level, when you're writing a screenplay, you don't know what's going to get made. You know what I mean? Although I know I'm going to fight tooth and nail to get it made. And that's what kills a lot of filmmakers' dreams and writers' dreams is because they're going to put all this time in and they don't know if it will actually ever happen. Now, I go in knowing it'll happen somehow. And luckily, I've been lucky the last three times. But I have a couple scripts I've written that didn't get made yet. So anyway, the writing process is not my favorite part because there's a lot of it's painful getting it done, painful isolating from the rest of the people in the world to get my head in that right space, and painful sometimes in the back of your head wondering if it's going to get made. Okay, so that's so what's my favorite part? When you know you got the money and you're going to go into production. All that weight that you built up from writing that script is now free. Now you can actually have fun and believe in it. And finding locations. Finding locations is the best part because when you find a location, it becomes real. Now all I need is a damn camera and some actors. Let's just shoot this thing, right? It's real. So I actually love location scouting because it just, all the storytelling that I put on paper comes to life and it becomes real. If I find the location, I tell it to all filmmakers, if you have an idea and you wrote a script and you want to make that movie, find the damn location. Find it first. Find where you want to shoot it. It'll become real.
Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really love Dominique. I'm looking forward to a planned sequel, but big picture, I could see this sequel going on for several installments. Do you see that big picture as well, probably years back? Or
Yeah. We were even talking maybe TV series. Yeah, after the sequel. Yeah, and then a prequel. I mean, it has all the makings of a franchise. It's just people have to come out in the first one. So, yeah.
Great, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, bud.
Take care. Okay, guys, I'm back. The Junketeer, it's a little bit of synchronicity, a little bit of Simply Red's Holding Back the Years. I think that's the name of the song. It's a very wistful situation here, but it's not even to attract new Patreon members. I think we have 28 or 29 Patreon members for our Cinematics podcast, and that's community, and that's great. But I'm creating a new podcast right now. It's still in the gestation stages. I might even record it later tonight or tomorrow. It's called The Junketeer, and it will detail my years from 91 I think it's 91 to about 2015 or 2016, my years doing press junkets all around Los Angeles and maybe out of town junkets. A lot of these movies, it's weird because press junkets were a big thing. They still are a big thing, but right now television has the big grasp on press junkets. But if you want to learn or know about, and I think the people who are interested in this is a very niche audience, but if you want to learn how the press was regarding covering movies from maybe the 90s to early aughts up to like maybe even 2010, 2011, 2012, and then it started petering off last decade. And especially with COVID, things, press junkets were pretty much almost non-existent, at least for print and radio, and also, print and radio and online people, they didn't get to cover. But still, press junkets go on right now. There are the bigger outlets that cover press junkets, but with the junketeer, I will give you guys sort of a picture of what press junkets were like back in the day, the perks we used to get, the kind of travels that we would go on, and all that stuff. And maybe baked into the junketeer, I'll also give some of my insights on the quote unquote art, or how I interview people. Maybe I'll give some tips along the way, some reflections, maybe even my friendship with Anderson Cowan, who helped create Cinematics podcast. And it's just going to be a free flowing kind of thing. It's not going to be a great sound design podcast because I'm not a sound designy kind of person. I'm no Brian Eno. I can barely even put a music bed on top of a soundbite. So, but I will give you my sort of, each episode will deal with parts of my life as a journalist or a junketeer. That's why the reason why the podcast will be called The Junketeer is because junket people would call fellow junketers junketeers. I used to be in radio for about almost 19 to 20 years. Was it 19 years? That was a big part of my life, working at Westwood One. So I will detail that as well. And what I used to do from 93 to about 2012, working at Westwood One. I'll also detail some of my stuff. Those 2 years I worked at the UCLA Daily Bruin. And then within the last decade, being a very poor, basically unemployed journalist, what I've been doing with my website. So you'll hopefully, it'll be interesting to a few people. If it's not, it's still just an extra perk for people who are part of our Cinematics Patreon. And hopefully it will give an insight pretty much to how junkets used to be run. And I don't really know how they're run today because I don't go to junkets anymore. The last maybe even 5 or 6 years, I've been doing all of my interviews via Zoom. Thanks to the advent of Zoom, a lot of these interviews just take place via Zoom. It's easier for everybody. But I'll give you a small insight to what things were like back in the day, right? Back in the day. But again, that podcast, The Junketeer, haven't recorded the first episode as of yet, but that will be only available for our Cinematics Patreon members. So if you're so inclined, our Cinematics Patreon is a $5 a month catch-all. We do me, Bruce Perky, and Eric Holmes do a bonus episode where we're covering movies. We're covering movie years from the years 1980 to 2020. This month, we're covering the year 1990. And so every month as a Patreon member for $5 catch-all, you get a bonus episode from me, Bruce, and Eric, and then early access to some of these interviews that we do. And then, I just thought of it last night, the podcast, The Junketeer. I'm thinking it'll be a once a week podcast, and I'll be releasing it probably each weekend, and I'll be putting it on the Cinematics Patreon feed. Okay. So I don't know. It's not like I'm an actor or director or filmmaker or anything big like that, but I want to give you guys sort of an insight to sort of the peripheral players in these things. All right. So I don't know. I hope some people get to listen to it and enjoy it, and it'll be less edited than the edits I do on Cinematics, and a lot of the stuff I do on the YouTube channel. I edit the heck out of me, Eric, and Bruce. This will be a little bit more free flowing. All right, guys. So The Junketeer coming to your Cinematics Patreon feed soon. If you don't listen to it, I'm not going to say it's your loss. I'm just glad that you listen to me here over at Find Your Film, and of course over at Cinematics. You guys take care. And all of this, most importantly, would love to hear if you guys give a shot to Dominique as well. Tell us what you think of that movie. Take care. Bye.